So your prints are sticking so well to your build plate that you can't get them off without breaking them, or having your supports be stuck to the build plate, or scratching the surface. Let's explore some things that we can do to the surface to make it come off easier. I want my prints to pop off of the build plate really easily without scratching the surface, kind of like this painted surface on the Anycubic Photon works. But on mine, I just did a test where I did some bases, just to show how difficult it was to get the pieces off, even after sanding with a 120 grit sandpaper to get it smoother. It is still really difficult to get them off, but at least they don't break before they peel off. If for some reason they aren't sticking well enough, they tell you to sand the surface, and what was provided with the Sonic Mighty 4K was an 80 grit sandpaper, which is really rough, and I tried that and it was still just as difficult to get off. So I tried sanding it smoother, and this is the results that we're getting. But it's still really difficult to get them to come off. On the painted surface of the Photon, if I just barely get underneath the print, it will just pop right off or peel off. But with this, I can get my razor blade stuck in it, and it still won't come off. But with a little bit of prying, I can get it to come off. I asked Anycubic about what kind of paint they were using on their build plate, and the response that I received was that it was not necessary to use. However, it seems to be working a lot better, so why not try it? So I'm going to show you what I did. It may not work for everyone, and I'm sure there's probably a better way that other people will share with us in the comments. And I just have to say, thank you so much to all of my patrons who help support this channel. Thank you for helping me make these videos possible. If you would also like to support me, please go to my Patreon and sign up for a tier. Here's my scratched up surface, which also leaves scratches in my prints, if not pieces of metal stuck to it, I can't quite tell. So I'm going to refinish it with the P80 sandpaper that I was provided with, after which I will then go to higher grits to get it a little bit smoother before applying my paint. I did some general searching, and it looks like an anodized paint is what you would want to use. So that's what I got. And now that I have my really smooth surface, I'm going to wash it off and dry it and get it ready to paint. I only want to paint the surface, so I will be using some Duplicolor metalcast anodized coating that I found in a blue that was very similar to the color that I have on the other printer. So I'm going to use some painter's tape to go around the outside. Once I have it lined, I'm going to use just a grocery sack to stick on the inside, and that way only get paint on the surface, hopefully. Once it's ready, I will sit it as level as I can and apply a couple of coats, waiting a few minutes in between. Hey past self, it's future self. Guess what? When you use a spray paint that you haven't used before, you should probably fully read the instructions. Just saying. Nah, future self, don't worry about it, I got this. Nobody reads the instructions. Just put that paint on there, let it dry, and we'll be good to go. I don't know why past self sounds like a hillbilly. This is why when I DM, I try not to do voices if I can avoid it. Anyway, I put about 4 coats on there just to make sure that it has a good even layering. And then I let it sit and dry for about 2 days. After it's done, there are some spots that have a little bit of globs on there, so I'm going to use my finer sanding papers or polishing papers and just kind of try and smooth that out so that it's a nice smooth surface. Trying not to remove very much paint that I put on there, mostly just trying to get any bumps to be smooth. You may recognize these polishing papers as what I use to sand my dice with. they are much higher grit, even though grit and micron are different measurements. These papers get to about 14,000 grit, which would be 1 micron, which is the lowest I have. Now I have a really even, smooth surface. I will go ahead and re-level my bed and print my test again. And it's done, so these should just peel right off like butter. Wait, what? Oh no, barely touch it and it scratches right off. I wonder if there was something I was supposed to have done that would have prevented this from happening, as it should be really scratch resistant and things should just come off of it really easy. So I go ahead and try with the razor blade to get underneath of it to see if it will just peel off. And it does pretty well, but it looks like it's also taking some paint with it, which it is. Although all things considered, it is coming off significantly easier. Imagine how much better it would peel off if it wasn't taking the paint with it because it was cured all the way. It does peel off, but it does have a bit of suction because of the paint that sticks to the back of it. Even if I wipe it fairly hard, the paint will come off, which is not good. So I guess we'll have to take a look at that can again and see what we did wrong. And sure enough, you have to wait 7 days for the paint to cure. I had other things I needed to print and didn't have that long, so I sanded the paint off, made it really smooth with my polishing paper and tried it again, and found, hey, that works really well. I don't even necessarily need the paint because I got my surface so glass-like smooth that it peels right off just like it should. And I did get these new razor blades that are plastic. They work really well and don't scratch the surface. So I use that to just get underneath of it to just pop it right off. So the long story short, if you need it to stick more, use a rougher sanding paper. If you need it to stick less, make it as smooth as possible. I will try the paint again later as I think it will help and also be more scratch resistant. But I hope this video was helpful to you and that you were able to glean some helpful tips. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for future ones.